What is the best weapon in Splitgate on the PS4, Xbox, and PC Beta 2021? Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Diaside, and this video is all about determining the best weapon in Splitgate. Now what does that exactly entail? Well, you guessed it, the number one thing that we're going to cover is TTKs, baby. I've gone and calculated every single TTK for the carbine, the pistol, the SMG, the battle rifle, the assault rifle, you name it, we got it, including power weapons. And so we're going to cover all that in just a couple of seconds, as well as some of the other deciding factors as to what makes it good in this range or that range, and really what makes a weapon the best, including playstyles. If you're an engineer like myself and like some data, then oh boy do I got a treat for you, my friends, because we're about to get into all that Gucci and Versace goodness right now. And so the only thing we have to do is just to simply sit back, relax, eviscerate that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump right into the video. I'm sure that by now, many of you have played Splitgate in a wide variety of game modes, whether that be Team Deathmatch, Domination, SWAT, maybe even some competitive game modes like Takedown, and with each one of those game modes we then spawn with different weapons. This might be a combination of the carbine and the auto rifle, or maybe it's going to be the carbine and the pistol, and it could be even some more things for different types of game modes. And so with all that being said, you're probably wondering, okay, well, where are all these weapons TTKs? That, my friends, is a glorious question, and so as you guys can see from right there on screen, here's a fantastic little screenshot of an Excel data that I've compiled together, and you can tell all those TTKs right there. If you want to, then be my guest, take a screenshot of this, or maybe I'll also include a link to the Excel spreadsheet itself so that you can download it. And if you want to see this maybe on something like, say, Reddit or even the Splitgate Discord, then by all means, let me know down in the comment section below so that I can post it there as well. Now I'll come back to the actual TTK stats in just a couple of seconds, but before we go any further, you gotta know a couple disclaimers here. These calculations were done in a frame-by-frame analysis method, and what that then means is that I literally went and counted, frame by frame, how many bullets were being fired in each and every single individual frame, as well as how many frames were in between bullets. The same thing also goes for pulse weapons like the battle rifle, and actually counting how many frames were between bullets and how many frames were between bursts. In addition to this, I did all these calculations on console, specifically the PS4, at a frame rate of 60 frames per second with a player at 100 health. Now, if you were curious as to how I got this information, well, you're seeing it right now this very second because I actually went into the game's range and I actually tested this all out for every single weapon, headshot, body shot values, how many frames were between bursts between actually firing the weapons, and so on and so forth. And so if you want to do this yourself, then by all means, be my guest, as it's actually quite a lot of fun. I forgot to say one more thing, and that is that for all these weapons and their computations, I took into account their ideal optimal damage at their ideal effective range. These TTKs are not taking into account damage falloff and the damage that occurs with them, but if you want to see this, maybe in something like a different video, then once again, let me know down in the comment section below. With all this fluff cabbage trash shenanigans being said, we now get to finally understand what makes enemy players a little bit salty. And so if we're really being ideal here, the weapons that had the fastest TTKs in this entire game is number 1, the auto rifle at 0.5 seconds, the battle rifle also at 0.5 seconds, and the plasma rifle once again at 0.5 seconds. Now, does that mean that these weapons are going to be the best in the entire game? Mathematically speaking, yes, but in a wide variety of scenarios, no they're not. And this also takes into account that not every single player is always going to land critical headshots 24/7. A lot of times you're going to land body shots. And it's also not taking into account the other fact that many weapons aren't actually on all maps in the game. And so in one map, you might be able to pick up a battle rifle, but in other maps, you might only be able to pick up an auto rifle, and some other maps you might spawn with different weapons as well, like a carbine and a pistol, or a carbine and an auto rifle. I think it's safe to say that you get my point. And so now that we kind of get this down, what I really wanted you guys to focus on here is actually what makes an ideal weapon ideal for this range engagement or for that range engagement. If you happen to find yourself in those close range engagements like right up in your face, then there is no doubt in my mind the best weapons hands down are the battle rifle, auto rifle, and pistol. As I already stated, the battle rifle and the auto rifle both happen to have an optimal TTK at 0.5 seconds, aka a half second flat, but the pistol isn't too shabby either at 0.6 seconds. On the other hand, the pistol also happens to have a body shot TTK at 0.75 seconds, whereas the auto rifle has one at 0.7 seconds, and the battle rifle is absolutely detestable here at 1 second flat. Remember what I said from earlier? Not all players are going to land critical headshots all the time, and so in reality here, probably what's going to be best in a wide variety of scenarios if you find yourself in those close to mid-range engagements is actually going to be the auto rifle. Not only does that thing happen to have one of the best TTKs at 0.5 seconds, but its body shot TTK is absolutely spectacular at 0.7 seconds. And so as long as you're simply landing body shots and body shots alone, this thing's gonna melt players very, very quickly, and they're gonna say, what the heck did I just get melted by? And then you can say, adios, ciao, bye-bye. Now the one weapon that I left out here in those close range engagements is the SMG. And the reason why I did so is because its optimal TTK is only at 0.8 seconds, whereas its body shot TTK is at 0.9 seconds. And so in this respect, the weapon is not nearly as good as the auto rifle or even the pistol in those close range engagements, and so if you happen to find it, is it going to be ideal for you to use? Maybe, maybe not. This all depends upon your personal preference and playstyle, but once again when we're going down to a purely mathematical analysis, the SMG is not the best. Now that we've kind of covered those close range engagements, the next thing that I want to cover is those mid to long range engagements. And here you really got to take into account things like overall damage range, as well as the damage fallout that's then going to incur with those weapons. And so if you were to ask me, the best ones in this category is once again the battle rifle, potentially the auto rifle, and certainly the carbine for these mid to long range engagements. Now you already know all the stats about the battle rifle and the auto rifle, but you haven't heard anything about the carbine. The main thing that I want to point out about the carbine is that its body shot TTK is atrocious at 1.1 seconds, but its optimal TTK is not too shabby at 0.73 seconds. Now I won't lie, its optimal TTK is a little bit on the higher side in comparison to some of the other weapons, and the same thing is also true, and probably it's actually the worst for the body shot TTK in contrast to the others. But what you also have to take into account is that in a lot of game modes, whether that be in competitive, ranked, or maybe something in say casual team deathmatch, you're going to almost always spawn with a carbine. Thus, this is very, very essential for you to get familiar with the carbine because you're going to spawn with it in a lot of cases, and that means that you have to become efficient with it, landing many critical headshots as well as body shots, and that's definitely the case for those cross-mat distances. Now, I haven't done the exact computations for this yet, but I do know that for the carbine and from the battle rifle specifically, their overall damage falloff is much greater than that of the pistol, the auto rifle, and so even the SMG. But now begs the question, okay, so what's really ideal for those mid and cross-mat distances? If I had to choose a weapon here, I would certainly go for the battle rifle, hands down, because it's got that optimal TTK at 0.5 seconds. But don't forget that its body shot TTK is at 1 second, and that then means that if you happen to miss even a single bullet in the first 2 bursts of this weapon's firing, it's going to need a full 3rd burst to get that body shot TTK at 1 second, and so on and so forth. The battle rifle is essentially a high-risk, high-reward weapon. If you can land your shots, it's going to reward you significantly. But if you miss, maybe using something like say the carbine is going to be much more ideal. Because that thing right there is going to be much more easier to use. Its hitbox tends to be a little bit bigger than that of the battle rifle, and its damage falloff is certainly greater than that of the battle rifle, especially at cross-map distances. Now the only weapon that I really haven't covered yet is the plasma rifle. And this thing is absolutely spectacular because it's got an optimal TTK at 0.5 seconds, and the same thing is also true for its body shot TTK, making it so that all you gotta do is just land shots with the weapon in general. As long as you can do that, it's definitely got the fastest TTK in the entire game. But the thing that you gotta remember about the plasma rifle is that that thing has a little bit of a delay in terms of overall travel time. What do I mean by this? All the weapons I discussed so far, the carbine, the pistol, the auto rifle, the battle rifle, and the SMG all have bullets that travel instantaneously, but the plasma rifle does not, in that it actually fires what I would call pulses, and these pulses then take time to get from one place to the next, and you're going to have to take into that account when you actually fire the weapon. Essentially this means that this thing is going to be ideal in those very close engagements, and maybe close to mid-range engagements, but as soon as you get outside of that into the mid and certainly not cross-mat distances, don't use this thing as you're going to get shot every single time and be obliterated by Exodia sent to the Shadow Realm. With this, you all now have a very good sense as to how the weapons are going to be performing, at least the ones that you spawn with, as well as the ones that you can pick up every now and then, but the ones that take the longest timers are considered to be the power weapons, and those consist of the railgun, the shotgun, the sniper, and the rockets, and those are certainly classified as instantaneous weapons. What do I mean by this? All it simply takes is one shot from any of these weapons, and you're going to be gone in an instant, no TTK whatsoever. However, it's also very important to note that with some of these weapons, they might have a charge time. And it's also important to note that in a lot of cases, you're not always going to land a critical headshot with a sniper, and you're not always going to land every single pellet with a shotgun, and you're not always going to get the best radius explosion with the rocket, and so that then means that you might need to take 2 rockets, 2 sniper shots, or 2 shotgun slugs, etc. etc. Of course, this is never ever ideal, but if you were to do so, the rockets are going to have a body shot TTK, aka 2 rockets firing time of 1 second on the dot. And the same thing also goes for the shotguns. But the same thing that's not said for that of the sniper is its body shot TTK is going to actually take 2 shots, and that's going to be correlated to a 0.85 second body shot TTK. On the flip side of this though, we also happen to have the railgun. And the railgun is so unique because it's actually a charge weapon. And so this then means that you're never ever going to have an instantaneous TTK with this thing, because remember, it's going to take exactly 1 second to fully charge that thing, and then finally being a body shot or a headshot is not going to matter, it's always going down that player. Even if you happen to shoot somebody in the pinky toe, this railgun is still going to down you guaranteed, and that's what's so great about the railgun. But the one downside is once again, that crazy long charge time at 1 second on the dot. Now that you kinda got a sense of all these weapons, if I had to pick one of them that's truly the best among the best, there is no doubt about it in my mind, the sniper is the best overall power weapon. Because, number 1, it's going to always be that instantaneous TTK if you're landing those critical headshots, and number 2, if you happen to land 2 body shots, it's still going to have a very fast body shot TTK at 0.85 seconds. The same thing cannot be said for the shotgun, the railgun, or the rockets, and so with this, we have now covered every single weapon in Splitgate. If I had to pick one for those really up close and personal engagements, I'd have to say either the auto rifle or the battle rifle is certainly ideal. If we're talking about those mid to cross map distances, then definitely the battle rifle once again is going to be ideal, as well as the carbine, because it's going to have that very minute damage fall off and still have a decent TTK at 0.73 seconds. Lastly, for those instantaneous weapons, the sniper rifle is in the number 1 spot, and so now I leave the floor to you, my friends. What do you guys think? What's the best for you and your particular playstyle? Sometimes you gotta take into account a hyper-aggressive playstyle, and sometimes you gotta take into account a more passive playstyle, and that's then gonna change the weapon that's gonna be ideal for you as well. For me personally, I happen to have a hyper-aggressive playstyle, and so the ones that are gonna have the fastest ideal TTKs for those up-close and personal engagements are certainly gonna be ideal, and so that's why I picked the battle rifle as well as the auto rifle for a wide variety of cases in my playstyle. Is that going to be the same for you? Maybe not. But that's why I want to hear your comments once again down in the comment section below. And whatever you guys say, you always know that I'm going to respect your opinions, and that's something that I can guarantee. That's much all I've got for you as of right now, Diaslayers. And so as always, GG TNT.